Hi all, today we are going to discuss about the construction, working and the turn-on methods of SCR. So before going to that, let us see the basics of the thyristor. So the thyristor name from the combination of the thyratron tube. Actually it has the characteristics of the thyristor tube, but actually it is a solid state device similar to that of the transistor. So that's why the name taken from this thyre, it is taken from the thyratron tube because it is having the characteristic of the tube, and the construction is actually it is a solid state device, it is not a tube. So that's why the name came from the transistor second part, that is ester. That means having characteristic of thyristor but having the solid state device. So the definition of the thyristor was given by IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission, in 1963 as, so the thyristor is one which has at least 3 or more PN junctions, and it has a two stable state, that is on and off. So different type of devices that exhibit this characteristic, that means which can be called as a thyristor, are SCR, triarc, diarc, SCS, that is silicon control switch, PUT, GTO, RCT, etc. But out of these, the SCR, which is called as a silicon control rectifier, because silicon is used in that one, so that's why it is called as a silicon control rectifier. It is a silicon and it is a control rectifier. It is just similar to a diode, but we can control the instant of the turn on. That's why it is made up of silicon and a control rectifier, SCR, and it is most widely used for high power applications due to the on state losses. Due to the minimum on state losses, it is the most widely used device for high power applications up to 10 kV, 3000 amperes, that is about 30 megawatt. Up to this much range we can go for the SCR, and that's why practically the SCR and the thyristors are interchangeably used, because generally thyristor means it is SCR only because it is the most widely used device out of all the devices. And coming to the SCR, we have discussed it before that it is a unidirectional device. That means it will arrow the current in only one direction, that is only from the anode to the cathode, similar to the diode, and it is a bipolar device. That means it can block in both the positive voltage and the negative voltage, but only the forward current. So that day it is called as the bipolar device. So what are these devices? These are already discussed in previous lectures. That's why I am not going into detail. So it is a 4-layer, 3-junction PN semiconductor device. So you can see here it is having the like PN are used for construction of this one. So every PN junction will form as one junction. So that's why it will be P and N. This is one junction, this is junction 2 and junction 3. It is 3-junction device, and it is having the 4 layers, 1, 2, 3, 4. That means PN, 4 layers. And generally it will have like this, the upper one, so which is connected to the upper one, that layer is heavily doped. So doping concentration is mentioned here. It will be of the order of 10 to the power of 19 per centimeter cube. And the next layer will be the N minus layer. That minus indicates it is lightly doped. So which is of the order of 10 to the power of 13 centimeter to the power of minus 3. And next layer will be moderately doped. It is 10 to the power of 7 centimeter to the power of minus 3. And then outer layer will be heavily doped. So the reason for doing the lightly doping of this one is to extend the voltage range of this device. So what is the advantage of going for the lightly doping, heavily doping? These are already discussed in the basics of the previous chapter. So that's why again I am not going into detail of this. We will discuss wherever it is really required, such as the switching characteristic and other things. So out of all these layers, the outer P region is considered as the anode. You can see this P region I am taking as the anode, and the outer N region we take the cathode, and from the inner P region we take the gate, and from the inner P region we take the gate. So these layers I am numbering from the top. So it is P1, this is N1 because first N type of layer, then P2 second P type of layer, N2 second N type of layer. So that's why they are numbered like this. So in order to understand the working of this one SCR, so we have to consider or discuss about 3 different modes. So it can operate in reverse blocking mode, forward blocking mode, and forward conduction mode. Under reverse bias condition it will act as a open switch only, but under forward bias condition it will either act as an open switch or a closed switch. That's why it is called as controlled rectifier. So the symbol for this one, so you can see here this symbol is like similar to the diode, but having a gate control. By controlling the gate pulse we can control the instant of the turn on, but we cannot turn off as per our wish, because what is the reason and disadvantages, this we are going to discuss in the coming lectures in detail. So first let us start with the reverse blocking mode. In the reverse blocking mode, that means it is reverse bias. Reverse bias means So let us take the layers in the outer layers only to understand this. This is P layer, this will be connected to negative terminal. This N is connected to positive terminal. So whenever it is connected like this, this entire voltage will drop across the different junctions J1, J2 and J3. So again, because this is the minus and plus here, similarly minus plus will drop, minus plus will drop, minus plus will drop. So how much ratio they will drop? It depends on the resistance offered by these respective junctions. Getting it? So now this junction, because this P and N, because P is connected to negative, N will be connected to positive. So this junction is reverse biased. Similarly, junction J3 is also reverse biased, but coming here you can see this N is connected to negative. This P side is more positive with respect to the N side. So this junction J2 is forward biased. That means this PN junction will act as a closed circuit. This is closed. Only the resistance that is offered is junction J1 and J3, or this can be represented as equivalent like this. This is my battery. So the diodes are connected like this, PN. So PN and this is PN. So under these conditions, because when the junctions are reverse biased, we have seen in the diode, some small leakage current only will pass. So small leakage current, and this leakage current is passing under reverse bias condition. So that's why we call it as a reverse leakage current. I am representing by IRL of the order of few microamperes to milliamperes. It depends on the rating of the device. More the rating of the device, more will be the leakage current, because more will be the area, more obviously will be the leakage current. More carriers can pass. So it will be of the order of micro or milliamperes. So now under this reverse bias condition, let us assume as I am increasing the voltage. So as we are increasing the voltage, what happens? The reverse biasing is increased. So it is similar to the diode only. So this barrier width of the junction J1 and J3 will goes on increasing. So as the barrier width is increasing, they will go on increasing. So voltage will drop across them only. That means the voltage will drop across this junction J1 and J3. So again, out of the junction J1 and J3, so whichever junction you can see here, this N minus junction is more lightly doped when compared to this P region, because these outer regions are heavily doped anyway. So whichever is lightly doped, so in that region the barrier width will be more. It will expand more in the lightly doped region compared to the heavily doped region. So if you understand these basics, you can refer to the basics lectures we have already discussed in the previous diodes and other circuits. So that's why I am not going into details now. So because of this, what happens, as the barrier width is more, that means it can withstand the more voltage. So out of this VA, more voltage will drop across the junction J1 and little less voltage will drop across the junction J3. That means, so less voltage is across J3 and more voltage is across junction J1. So please remember this one, that will be the voltage drop. So a point will reach where this barrier width will reach, that means completely occupy, and it will break down. That breakdown is called as avalanche breakdown. That breakdown is called as avalanche breakdown. So the avalanche breakdown happens at a voltage of VBR. The avalanche breakdown happens at a voltage of VBR. So this VBR at this point, when the breakdown happens, because this will act as a switch, so it will start conducting. So as it start conducting, suddenly the current will rise to extreme high value at a rapid rate. So as the current is suddenly rising, so much heat will be produced, and because of that the huge temperature rise will be there, and this may lead to damage of the SCR, because during the avalanche breakdown is happening because of the voltage, high value of the voltage gradient. So this leads to high value of the current and spoiling of this SCR. So that's why we have to take care that the reverse voltage never crosses this value of VBR. So the applied voltage should always be less than this value to avoid the damage of the SCR. So after breakdown, junction J1 and J3, breakdown of the junctions, the current is limited only by the load resistance. If the load resistance is less, the current will be extremely high and it will act as a short circuit and damage your device. So now coming to the forward blocking mode. So let us assume I am conducting the forward biasing. That means P plus is connected to positive, this N plus is connected to negative. I am varying this voltage. So when you are applying this one, you can see P is connected to positive. So this PN junction is forward biased, and this lower PN junction is also forward biased, but this NP, because N is connected to positive, P is connected to negative, so this junction is reverse biased. As this is reverse biased, the barrier will be formed here. So how much amount of the barrier width will be formed? So that will depend on how much value of the voltage you are applying, because most of the voltage that is given by from here VA, that VA will appear across the junction J2 only. So that's why I have written here. So the entire voltage will drop across the junction J2. So because of this, small forward leakage current will pass, because it is current passing under forward bias condition, and that is leakage, which is leaking. So that's why this is called as forward leakage current. You can see here, as the voltage is increasing, the forward leakage current will goes on increasing. As the voltage is increased, the barrier width will goes on increasing, and a point will reach where the barrier will break down, which we call as the avalanche breakdown happens. And when the avalanche breakdown happens, the current will suddenly rise. So the current will suddenly rise, so it will shift from the point M to N. That means the voltage across the thyristor will suddenly decrease from VBO to a very small value of about Vt. So it will shift to this line. So why it is shifting from this point to this point, what is happening in this phenomena? So this I am going to explain in the switching characteristic in detail. So there you will understand this concept clearly. Here I am only briefly going, because if I discuss everything, only this lecture will come around 1 hour. So this will be discussed in detail. By the end of completing this chapter, every concept of the SCR will be clear to you. So that I will take care. So now, so after this point, it is shifting to this point and it will start rising. So now going to the forward conduction mode. So let us assume that VBO is host and it has come to the forward conduction mode. So now what happens, as the junction, only the junction need to break down in this case. So we know that automatically this forward breakover voltage, which I am representing by VBO, is less than the reverse breakdown voltage, because reverse breakdown voltage, it has to break two junctions. Whereas in this case, only one junction need to be broken. So that's why VBO will always be less. So after reaching the VBO, thyristor turns on and shift from the point M to N, and then to a point anywhere between this N and some K, some point K I am representing here. So after the breakdown, the voltage drop across the SCR drops to a very less value of the order of 1 to 2 volts only, and the current is limited only by the load. So even when the breakdown VBO happens, if the load is having very less value, the huge value of current will pass and the SCR may damage. So after the breakdown, that means the IA is increased, because again in this case also, because this VBO is also not less, even though it is less than VBR, but this breakdown is happening at a very high voltage. So automatically when the breakdown happening at high voltage, because of the voltage gradient, what will happen? Huge value of current will rush. So because of huge value of current passing, so more I square R losses will be there, or more heat will be produced. So because of that, the temperature will increase drastically and there is a chance that SCR may damage. So that's why in practice, we never go for this method. So this method is called as forward voltage triggering. That means you are going on increasing the forward voltage and then suddenly it will start switch on. So this is not used in practice. Let us see what are the different turn on methods which are used in practice, or what are the different methods that are available. Then we will see the advantage, disadvantage and decide which one are best. So different methods that can be possible are forward voltage triggering, gate triggering, dV by dt triggering, thermal triggering and the light triggering. So out of these, this gate triggering and the light triggering are used in practice only. So which type of triggering we used in practice, that depends on the type of the application. Sometimes the combination of gate triggering and the light triggering is also used, particularly for the case of high power devices. So that we are going to discuss in this section. So now first I am just going to revise the forward voltage triggering. We have already discussed. I am just summarizing the important points here. So without applying the gate pulse, if the voltage VA is increased, junction J2 will break down at a forward breakover voltage given by VBO. So at forward breakover voltage, the characteristic curve break over, because curve is passing up to here, it will break over and shifting to the point from M to N. It is shifting to the point from M to N, because at this point M, the current is equal to IBO. It is shifting from the point IBO to another current called as the latching current. So that's why it is called as break over, because the characteristic is breaking over. So this method is never employed in practice, as this may destroy the device due to avalanche breakdown, that is huge temperature that is produced, or the huge heat that is produced. So as we know that the value of VBO is less than VBR, whenever the thyristor is there, because what is the reason why VBO is less than VBR? I have already discussed this. In this case, only one junction J2 need to be break down compared to the junction J1 and J2 during the breakdown, reverse breakdown condition. That means both junctions should break down. So therefore VBA represents the rating of the SCR, as the applied voltage should be less than this rating. Because if the applied voltage is less than this, reverse breakdown will never happen and forward breakdown also will not happen. So your SCR is safe. So SCR can now be turned off, because once the SCR is turned on, SCR can be turned off only by reducing the anode current below a certain value. That certain value of the current minimum value of the current below which only the thyristor will turn off. So that is called as the holding current. So practically the value of the holding current will be only half, that means 1 by 2 to 1 by 3 times that of the latching current, or otherwise we can tell that latching current is 2 to 3 times of the holding current in practice. Okay, now let us proceed for the other things. So why the holding current is less, and these reasons also I am going to discuss in the switching characteristics in detail in the coming lectures. So then let us proceed further. The second method that is possible is the thermal triggering. So we know that during the forward blocking condition, entire voltage appears across the junction J2. So now this junction J2 is reverse biased, here the carriers are there. So here the barrier is formed, reverse biased junction is formed. So now if you can increase the temperature across this device, that means temperature at the junction J2, so automatically what happened, thermally generated carriers will generate. So carriers will have both electrons as well as holes. So out of the carriers that are generated, some carriers will pass as a leakage current and some carriers will recombine. Let us take for example, if electrons are produced here, this electron will recombine with the positive ions. Similarly, holes that are produced will recombine with these negative ions. So automatically the barrier width will decrease depending on how many charges are recombined. So obviously the barrier width will decrease. So when the barrier width is decreased, so automatically more current will pass. When more current will pass, then the cumulative action starts. When more current pass, more losses will be there, I square R losses. So more temperature is there. So when the temperature is more, again more carriers are generated. Again when more carriers are generated, more recombination happens. Again the junction width decreases. So as a result of this, again more current passes. So this is like a cumulative action, and finally that junction J2 will vanish and your SCR will turn on. I am repeating once again. So this reverse biased junction, if you can keep the heat or supply some temperature to this junction, thermally generated carriers will start recombining with the existing ions. So because of the recombination, this barrier width is decreased. When the barrier width is decreased, automatically leakage current will increase. When the leakage current is more, again losses will increase. When the losses are more, the temperature rise will be more. When more temperature is there, again carriers are increased. So this is a cumulative process. So cumulatively the barrier width will goes on decreasing because of recombination of the charges, that means barrier, whichever charges are there in the barrier width. So finally this junction will disappear. So using this method we can turn on, but the disadvantage is the temperature, huge value of the temperature is required. Because of this your SCR may damage, because the dissipation of that much heat will be very difficult task. So then the most commonly used method is the gate triggering. It is the most usual method of firing of the forward biased SCR. So in this case the gate will be given the positive, that means we give the positive voltage to the gate with respect to the cathode. So let us assume I have connected to a DC source. So because when you apply the voltage, this you can see this PN junction is forward biased. When this PN junction is forward biased, because this positive whichever terminal is connected here, it will attract the electrons from here, and this negative terminal will attract the holes. So out of these two junctions you can see that the P2 is lightly doped or moderately doped compared to N2, because N2 is heavily doped. So automatically it supplies more carriers compared to P2. That means more electrons are diffused from over the junction J3, that means from N2 plus to P2. So out of the carriers that are jumped here, only some carriers will recombine in this junction P2, because here the carriers are less. So now what happens, these electrons will diffuse over this junction J2. That means these carriers, these electrons will jump over this junction J2 and it will start recombining with these positive ions. So when it is recombining with these positive charges, automatically the barrier width will decrease. I am just repeating once again. Because of heavily doped N2 region, more carriers are supplied from, more electrons are supplied from N2 to P2 when compared to what are required for recombination here. So this extra charges will jump over the junction J2 and jump into the N1 minus region. That means this N1 minus region they will diffuse. So those electrons will recombine with the positive charges here. Because of that, the junction width J2 will decrease. When the junction width J2 is decreased, so automatically the breakdown happens at a lesser voltage. Because of that, the breakdown happens at a lesser voltage. So more the value of the gate supply you are giving, or more the value of the gate current you are applying, so more will be the decrease in the barrier width. So at a lesser value, it will break down. So this is the basic working principle. Generally, just understanding based on this concept how the J2 decreasing, what is recombination will be difficult. So this concept of turning on by applying a gate pulse can be better understood by going for two transistor model. So true transistor model I am going to discuss in the next class. So this concept will be completely clear to you there if you are having the doubt here, because if you are not understanding here, you will understand in the second approach. So now what will be the phenomena? So I have told you that higher the value of the gate current, lesser the voltage at which the breakdown happens. So same thing I have represented here. When Ig is equal to 0, breakdown happens at VBO. As the value of Ig is increasing, that barrier width decreases, so the breakdown happens at a lesser voltage only. So if the breakdown is happen at a lesser voltage, as the voltage during breakdown is less, so automatically the acceleration of the carriers is less. So chances for damaging of the SCR is less. That is the advantage. Or we can represent in this form gate current versus forward breakover voltage. So when the gate current is equal to 0, the forward breakover voltage will be VBO. Even when the gate current is little bit also, that is not going to affect. If the gate current is increased beyond some limit, then automatically the breakover voltage will goes on decreasing. The point where the breakover happens, you can see here as the value of the Ig is increasing, the breakover voltage is going on decreasing. So this we can observe from here. So here you have to see that once the breakdown happens, this Ig is not required to keep it on and the device remains in the on state. So whenever it is shifting from this characteristic, you can see here, it is shifting from the point M to N. So this point N is called as the latching current. So let us assume I have given the Ig3. So because of the Ig3, the characteristic has shifted like this and it has reached this current. Because the current is increasing from this point to the latching current value IL, it will take some time because carriers cannot be dissipated or cover the entire area easily. So current will gradually increase. That means that time it will take some time to reach from this current to the latching current. So at least your gate pulse should have this much duration that is required the current to rise from this leakage current to the latching current. If you remove your gate pulse before it reaches the latching current, there is a chance that your SCR may not turn on. I am repeating once again, it takes some time for the current to reach from this leakage current value to the latching current value. Once it reaches the latching current, it will reach to this on state characteristic. Then the thyristor will continue turn on even if you remove your gate pulse. But if you remove the gate pulse before it reaches the value of the IL, there is a chance that your thyristor may fail to turn on. So that current is called as the latching current. That means we can define the latching current as the minimum value of the anode current which must be attained during the turn on process to maintain the conduction even when the gate signal is removed. So therefore the gate pulse should have the sufficient width so that the IA reaches to the IL, that means the latching current value, otherwise the thyristor may not turn on. So once the thyristor turn on, the gate loses the control, it will remain in the on state, it will start acting as a diode only. So if you want to turn off your thyristor, you can turn off only if the current is below some value called as the holding current. Only if the current is less than the holding current, then only it can be turned off. And practically it is observed that the value of the holding current is very less compared to the latching current, or we can tell the latching current is 2 to 3 times the holding current. So this much value you have to decrease. So now next type of technique is a dV by dt triggering. Again same thing under forward bias condition, this junction J2 is reverse biased. So at the junction J2, because this side there is a positive carriers are there, negative carriers, it is reverse biased. So this junction, you can see here these are the positive charge, negative charge. So charges are on both sides and it is just equivalent to the dielectric material. So automatically this will start acting as a capacitor. So we know the behavior of the capacitor, the capacitive current is given by dq by dt. That means it is a d by dt of q is equal to c into v. That means Cj is the capacitance of this junction multiplied by voltage Va, because entire Va is dropping across this reverse bias junction. Or this I can write as Cj into dVa by dt plus Va into dCj by dt. So out of this, the Cj is nearly constant. So this dCj by dt will be equal to 0. So that's the only term that will remain is Ic is equal to Cj into dVa by dt. As Cj is equal to constant, I can tell that Ic is proportional to dVa by dt. So if you can change the rate at which the Va is changed, that means you can apply the pulse in such a way that dVa by dt is sufficient, because this IT, this whatever current IC is passing, it will do the similar thing what the gate pulse is doing, what the gate current is doing. So because of this, the recombination happens, so the barrier width decreases, and the characteristic and everything will be similar to that of gate pulse triggering only. So if we can vary the value of dVA by dt, we can turn on our SCR. So the next type of technique that is possible is a light triggering. So in this case, a recess or a small niche is made in the inner P region, so where we can apply the light. So when this recess is irradiated, free charge carriers, that means pair of both holes and electrons are generated, just like when the gate signal is applied. So a pulse of light of appropriate wavelength is guided by optical fibers for irradiation purpose. So such a thyristor, the name of the thyristor which is employing this technique is called as LASCR, that is a light activated SCR. Instead of applying the gate pulse, we are applying the light pulse. So you will get the light. Why should I go for the light pulse? We can directly apply the gate pulse, because gate pulse is very easy. Even the power consumed by the gate signal is very less. So the reason is, this light triggering has the advantage of electrical isolation between the power and the control circuits. So because of this electrical isolation, so wherever the isolation required, so we go for this light triggered SCRs only. So this LASCR are widely used in HVDC transmission systems. So what is the isolation? You can see here when we are applying the gate triggering. So in that case, you can see, so this gate circuit, this negative of the gate is given to connected to negative of your supply. That means whatever is your supply voltage, that negative and this negative are connected. That means this control or the gate circuit is not electrically isolated from your supply source. So that is the disadvantage of the gate triggering. Sometimes the combination of the gate and the light triggering may be used also in practice. I hope that different turn on methods of the thyristor are completely clear to you. So only doubts you may have in this characteristic is, when the forward breakover happen, how the characteristic are we shifting from that point to another point, and how the, because of the gate pulse, how the breakdown is happening at a lesser voltage, how the recombination and other things are happening. So these routes can be better explained by going for the 2 transistor model. So 2 transistor model I am going to explain in the next class, so that doubts also will be completely clear to you. So I hope everything is clear to you. If you still have any queries, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. I will answer to your queries from there. Thank you very much.